What a classic last night. I mean, it was thrilling in every sense of the word, everything that makes you a fight fan, all the things that you kind of go through and the disappointments that you usually get or things not living up to expectations. Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 was everything and more. It just had everything to it. It was so good and had every element of drama. It had just unbelievable guts and courage and adjustments and levels of dirty fighting, some controversy, everything. It just had everything. And it's one of those things where even like after it's like when you're watching the fight happen, you're watching something special immediately. Andre Ward mentioned this as it was going on. I felt like the read on social media was there as well, which is kind of a cool thing because normally like these are things that are left for people to wax poetic on and write articles about, and like the great boxing writers will tell you tales of it. And in this day and age, we're all kind of just living it in the moment. And it felt like, I do feel like that appreciation was there right away for what these two guys were putting off into the ring and what kind of performance they were putting forth for us. And what a thrilling show by both of these gentlemen. And, Tyson Fury ended up getting the win in the 11th round with that ferocious knockdown of a ferocious knockout of I don't even think fatigued is enough of an adjective to put on what Deontay Wilder was during this fight. But I do think for this performance, it was in a lot of ways so huge for both of them. But I think in a lot of ways was even bigger for Deontay. Now, he didn't end up getting the win, but I do think that the respect that people had for him jumped into such another level. Because I was just hearing a lot of stuff in the lead up to this fight about, the guy being a one-trick pony, the guy not fighting, what is his legacy, all this type of stuff. And it obviously wasn't the most becoming behavior of a longtime champion, the way that he took the loss to Tyson Fury and the way that he fired his trainer and all the excuses and all the stories and all the conspiracies. However, you see the way that he fought tonight, and you see the way that he was able to walk through the storm in crazy manners. It's a little bit of a nod to him as saying, maybe he was right. Maybe he should have been able to go out on his shield, go out on his own terms. Maybe he would have been able to summon something, because even in the rounds where he was getting knocked down in the 10th round, he was still coming back with some tenacity, with some flurries, with some life, basically up until the body just couldn't take it anymore. And Tyson Fury put him away with an absolutely hellacious 1-2. But I think Deontay Wilder earned a lot of respect from people tonight. And it was just a really thrilling performance because, he comes out in that first round and he's attacking the body. Everything that we heard from Malik Scott, he was delivering on. It was a lot like when we heard from what Tyson Fury was going to be with Sugar Hill Stewart the second fight around, that he was going to be the bigger puncher, he was going to be the bully. All right, we'll believe it when we see it. Same thing with Deontay. Like, all right, you're going to go and be a little bit more of a boxer. You're going to do the jab. You're going to go to the body. We're going to see the hook a little more. Believe it when I see it. And we saw it. I mean, the guy came out there and he outboxed Tyson Fury in that first round. He won the round. And definitely, I think, set some things up in chaos for Tyson Fury early on. But Tyson Fury, look, what this shows and what I think this performance shows is that this guy is, the baddest man on the planet, really. I mean, we could talk about pound for pound and we could talk about these guys' performances and who puts forth what, but I think this guy's just the man right now. He really is. He took that adjustment, that new twist that Deontay tried to give him, and spun it right where he was supposed to be in the second round. Kind of got things right. Then he puts everything really just goes off kilter in the third round. Like the third round is like the out of body experience where it was Deontay Wilder looking really, really good. I thought that he was actually winning a majority of that round, and Tyson Fury gets him. I mean, he gets him, hits him with a right hand right up against the ropes, puts him down to the canvas, and you're like, oh man, this looks bad. Like, because he was using a lot of energy, and they were mentioning the added mass that he had to him. Did that have a factor? I don't know. I think that it definitely, probably, if anything, was able to help him withstand a lot of the dirty tactics and a lot of the pushing down that Tyson Fury was doing. There's definitely, I think, going to be some elements of when Deontay Wilder, when he speaks about this, talking about the officiating and the long count in the upcoming round where he gets the 2 knockdowns and what was going on there. And really, Tyson Fury basically spent the next 2 rounds keeping Deontay Wilder in a headlock to really get his wits about him again, because when he took those two when he took those 2 knockdowns, it was no bueno for him. It looked like it was going off to a really, really bad place, because man, I mean, you probably thought after Deontay Wilder went down in that third round, okay, this is going to be all she wrote. And for him to come back and knock down Tyson Fury twice, not once, twice, and look like he was going to be back on the road to regaining his title, you just got like all these feelings of a fan. It's like everything is a storybook sometimes, and you're just like, man, this is what makes sports. This is what makes fighting. This is what makes drama. Everything that Deontay Wilder was able to put out in that 4th round, to come back, to have the fortitude, everything that he had fought for, everything that he had argued about, to come back and put Tyson Fury on the canvas twice in a round and really flip the fight on its head for that moment where we probably all thought this is going down a bad road for him. For him to have that moment was just so huge, and really just so exciting in every way. And I thought Tyson Fury was going to be in trouble, man. Like, and that again goes to credit to him, because as much credit as Tyson, as much love is going to be poured on Deontay Wilder today for his fortitude, and it should. This man, Tyson Fury, has taken some of the most hellacious punches from maybe the best knockout artist the heavyweight division has ever seen, certainly of the last 20 years. And he's been able to get up every single time. Now, maybe he's getting a little bit of an extra boost from the referees when it comes to this. That's definitely something that could be on the table for this, is like, did he get a little bit of an extra bump? Sometimes this is a very subjective thing. It's up to the ref's count. He's supposed to pick up the count from the corner, but I guarantee that is going to be something that we hear from with the Wilder camp. And this referee had a really, really tough job. You have 2 very, very big gentlemen. He's trying his best to be in there, tap the body to get them to break up, trying also to have them punch out of things. But make no mistake, I mean, Tyson Fury was holding the head of Deontay Wilder and trying to lean on the head a lot. Should Deontay Wilder put himself in that position a bunch of times? Maybe not, but I felt it was like almost to a fault that he was really, really allowing to lean on the head. At one point, just push Deontay Wilder down. Like he was using all of those dirty tactics to exhaust and frustrate Deontay Wilder in a lot of ways. But man, that 4th round, when he puts him down in that 4th round twice, it just had to be like this. I wonder what the dump though was like from Deontay, because I thought that he looked good. I had the 5th round going to him as well. The unofficial scorer had that, but some did have it going for Tyson Fury. So it's a pretty even round. I thought that he was able to take advantage of Fury looking a little bit still out of it, but he did by the end of it look like he was coming back. But yeah, I really, really thought that in the 6th round, Tyson Fury decided, all right, enough of putting this stuff up in space. I'm going to make this a dirty fight. I am going to lean on him. We're going to go a lot back to the tricks that we used in the second fight. And I thought that really flipped a lot of things. Now, look, I really think from basically round 6 on, I'm looking back at my scorecard. I gave everyone to Tyson Fury. And I ended up when the knockout happened, I had it 95-91 for Tyson Fury. But Wilder still had his moments. Like, that was the thing. I think that we were looking at Tyson Fury. He really, by the end of round 6, looked like he was all the way back. Round 7, he almost knocked him out. He almost knocked him down again. The ropes bounced Deontay Wilder back up. That was another thing. Like, there was a couple of exchanges where when even it looked like Deontay was going to go down, he strategically was able to hold Tyson Fury in the right way to keep himself up. And, there were, maybe, I think Tyson he ended up getting him down 3 times. There were a couple occasions where he might have been able to get him down 5 if circumstances were just a twinge different. But I thought that we saw by the second half of this fight, we saw a pretty beleaguered Deontay Wilder, who was like at the point where he was just looking for haymakers. But there were certain points where he really got it. Like, he was really having one of these things where, and I think the best moments that he probably had, it was like in the 9th round, he looks done up against the ropes, and he's still catching Tyson Fury with these nasty uppercuts, these quick right hands. Tyson Fury's hitting him back, though. He's just got the faster hands at this point. And, I think that was just the big difference, is that Deontay had to load up so much. And I think he would catch Tyson Fury, but Tyson was just a little bit more devastating. He had so much more pop. He was in a lot of ways, ironically, the way their bodies look, in the better shape to carry everything that he had forth in the second half of this fight. Round 10, brutal knockdown from Tyson Fury. But this was the one where, like, he gets him completely off balance. Wilder goes down, but it was it was very similar to the 12th round of their first fight, where, like, even in that last 30 seconds, that last 20 to 30 seconds, Wilder was still throwing haymakers, was still dangerous and still crazy. And I think that was probably his last stand, because we get to the 11th round. That's where the vicious KO happens. A 1-2 monster right hand, and it sends Deontay Wilder to the canvas in a violent way. And that was all she wrote. A thriller, man. One of the best fights I've ever seen. I don't think that I don't think I've seen many fights better than that, with the stakes, with the back and forth, with the drama, with all the hate that these guys have for each other. Just one of the best fights I've ever seen. And for Tyson Fury, solidifies that he's that dude of this era, especially with Anthony Joshua and the stumbles that he's taken. Tyson Fury certainly had a very game rival in Deontay Wilder. I said this last week. I thought that Deontay Wilder was going to show a better version of himself. I thought that this was going to end up going the distance. It was a round away from going the distance, but it did go in a lot of ways. I do think it went the way that I thought it was going to go. It couldn't. I could have never painted it being this much drama, but I definitely thought that I was going to see a Tyson Fury win. But I didn't think. That we were going to see as big a blowout as we did in the second fight, and we saw a much more game Deontay Wilder. I think if it wasn't so crazy within the first 3 rounds, it would have been interesting to see, would he have kept going with the body attack? Would he have kept trying to go that route? But as you know, Tyson Fury says, people revert to who they are. That's a lot of what we once bleep hit the fan, you kind of had to be at that point where, all right, this is a firefight, and let's see what the others got. So it was an absolute classic. I got to give a shout out to that judge who arbiter. Was it arbiter or judge? Whoever the hell legally made this fight happen, thank that guy. Because without him, without Deontay Wilder fighting for this trilogy, legally, we would have never gotten this classic. And it was such a thriller. Such a thriller. We'll take a quick break here on the show. When we come back, we'll get into a little bit of what's next for everybody else. There was some questions. You know, they were trying to lay the groundwork on the broadcast, which was, should they do it a fourth time? I can't, I don't know how you could get any better than that. You know, this was, you think of like famous fourth fights, like you go to like Juan Manuel Marquez versus Manny Pacquiao, but that third fight was pretty underwhelming. You know, like it was a draw, probably one that should have gone to Juan Manuel Marquez more so than the other ones did. And so the fourth one actually did have some storyline to it. I don't know how it can get any better than this. You know, I don't think that Deontay Wilder can beat Tyson Fury. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like, look, he's put him on the canvas 4 times, but I don't know what are going to be the circumstances where he finally puts him on the canvas and it finishes him off. These are 2 guys with iron wills, and clearly he's got to put himself probably in a position where he is just in a much more better, I guess condition, but I don't even know how you could grade that with how crazy these wars have been. So I'm not even saying it as a criticism of Deontay Wilder. I don't know what are the circumstances. He would just have to hit him with such an atomic bomb that Fury wouldn't see. And I don't know. Tyson Fury just strikes me as too good to get caught with something like that. And I do think that he got a lot of what he was searching for, other than the championship, obviously. As far as the respect factor and all of the things that he argued from the previous fight, especially the idea of being able to go out on his shield, that he could continue the type of warrior that he is in the ring. I think he showed all of that. I think he did shut up a lot of people with that. And I think in a lot of ways, and this happens in the mixed martial arts community a lot more than it does in boxing, but I think in a lot of ways, even in this loss, showed people a lot of something. Because, you know, you go back to the first fight where he was able to put Tyson Fury down, but not really a fight he was ever really in danger. You know, he was getting outboxed and outfoxed, but he wasn't in danger. This was a fight that off the bat and everything that he dealt with in the lead up to this, he was in danger early on. He was put on the canvas early on. Even with the savvy, the game plan that he had in the first round, he was able to show a grit and a determination that we'd seen before. Like we've seen it in the first Luis Ortiz fight where he was put down and definitely had to was definitely hurt and was had to gather some things to go and get that win for sure. So it's not something we haven't seen from Deontay Wilder before, but this was much higher stakes, much bigger stage, and I just don't see the purpose of doing it a fourth time right now. I don't think. Could you see it down the line? I guess that's probably going to depend on how long Tyson Fury wants to fight. It'll be interesting because this whole Anthony Joshua Alexander Usyk thing has a monkey wrench into it because we have to see what is the conclusion of that. Anthony Joshua has invoked his rematch clause, and so they'll do that again. Hopefully they'll do it pretty swiftly and we could get to it. So maybe in the summer we could get an undisputed heavyweight champion. I think that's ultimately what we want. Yeah, I would say commercially, Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua is the bigger fight, but I really think that Tyson Fury is the biggest star right now. I think that he is the guy who sells the most as far as, there was some talk that, is he as big an American star as he is in Britain? The British fans are just better boxing fans than Americans are. Just bar none. Like, you can't compare. So I would say, yeah, probably AJ is the bigger deal, but Tyson Fury's kind of detached himself from the UK more so than AJ has. I still think that if he went over there and had a UK fight, be this conquering hero, I still think it would be a big deal. And if they did the fight an event if AJ did get his belts back from Usyk, which I don't think that he will. But if he did, it would be an absolute monster over there. But I think right now Tyson Fury's kind of the money man. Like I would think outside of Canelo Alvarez, I think that Tyson Fury's probably got a little bit of a spark to whomever he fights next. If it's Dillian White, I think that's going to be a big deal for his next fight. I think that if he ends up fighting Usyk, that'll be a big deal. I think that if he fights Anthony Joshua, that will clearly be the biggest deal. I think for him and Deontay Wilder, the time apart will be better. They are rivals. Apparently, according to Tyson Fury, didn't go great in the ring. We didn't hear from Deontay Wilder in the ring, which is fine. They don't have to be friends. Like it would be nice if everybody would hug it out and be sportsmen. That would be nice. It's not necessary for me as a boxing fan. It's okay for Deontay Wilder to hate Tyson Fury's guts. It's okay. It's okay for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder not to like each other. Not everybody has to be, Holyfield and Bo, who are, best friends in South Florida years after their wars. Not everybody has to be that. It's okay for me. I can live with it. Some people can't live with it. I can live with it. It's fine with me. And people want to judge Deontay Wilder into sportsmanship. Dude, that dude just gave you sportsmanship over his blood, his brain, and his body over 11 rounds. For me, I would just like the next fight for him to be for the Undisputed Championship. It would be nice if he could just go right to whoever it is in the summer. There's been talk that he wanted to fight Dillian White, and Dillian White's been sitting here waiting for his WBC title chance for what seems like 4 or 5 years. So I'd be into it. I think that's a fun fight. Still a dangerous fighter. I don't think he's got anything for Tyson Fury, to be honest with you, because I don't think Dillian White's as good as Deontay Wilder. But it's a fun fight. They talk a lot of bleep. He's a knockout artist. I'd be cool with that. Does Andy Ruiz find his way back into the mix somewhere? I'm cool with that. I don't think that anybody really on this heavyweight showcase showed too much that they're ready to go in there with the Gypsy King. Seems a little bit crazy to me. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyson Fury ends up, also going away for a little bit and kind of waiting for things to sort themselves out. He has shown he's still a very dangerous man with 500 plus days off. He doesn't need to be active. I know that he's said that he likes to be active and that he wants to be active, but I think we saw tonight, not necessarily necessary for him to be active. He's still a very dangerous man who is in very, very good shape. If you were worried about COVID fallout, about what his oxygen tank would be, he looked pretty great in round 11. So I didn't think there wasn't a lot of physical fallout from that either. So yeah, from my standpoint, I kind of just want to see him wait this out. Hopefully we get AJ versus Usyk fairly soon, and then we can leap off into the summer and let's get to the Undisputed Championship. If he wants to do a Dillian White fight, I'm cool with that. I think that's a fun fight. But as far as a fourth fight with Deontay Wilder, this is what I would say. I think it comes under these circumstances. One, somehow in the midst of Usyk, somebody loses a belt, Deontay Wilder ends up picking up another belt and gets into the mix that way. Okay. They're still undisputed on the line. I don't think you're never going to have people not want to see them fight. But I don't think that we should see them fight right away. I would like to see Deontay Wilder get his hand raised. We have not seen his hand raised in victory in a while. So let's see that element to it as well. Let's see a Deontay Wilder who is victorious. Let's see a guy who maybe goes down the strategy with Malik Scott. I do think Malik Scott and him was a good match. I do think that we saw a guy. I thought that the stuff that he had in the corner, I thought he had good advice for Deontay Wilder. I thought that he brought something out of Deontay Wilder. So I'd like to see that partnership continue a little bit and see if these guys can do a little something with each other. So maybe a Deontay Wilder fights an Andy Ruiz. Maybe he goes and he fights, I don't know. Maybe if Anthony Joshua ends up losing to Usyk, we get AJ versus Deontay Wilder just for kicks. I'd be into that fight too. So I think that he's got a lot of options out there. This idea that there aren't big fights for Deontay Wilder, I think are false, and I think they are super false after tonight, where he showed himself to be just an absolute gladiator in the ring against Tyson Fury. I think that he bought himself a lot of credibility as far as people wanting to pay. You paid your $80 tonight, you aren't even thinking about it, I think, today. Like, I got my pay-per-view bill this week for Pacquiao Ugas. I was like, I got to see Manny's last fight, and Ugas had a cool moment, but stung a little for the price you paid. This one, you don't feel that way at all. And I think that buys something for you the next time that you're on a pay-per-view billing. I think that definitely gets you something from the fan base. It really, really does. So yeah, best case I think is we see a Deontay Wilder take some time off. I hope both of these guys actually take a little bit of a break, because this was a hellacious war. So, Tyson Fury coming back and fighting in December like he said he was, that seems kind of crazy after what he was just in that ring. Deontay Wilder, I would more than expect him to take some time off and maybe just kind of see, like, all right, if Anthony Joshua ends up losing, that's the fight I would do. I would say, if we're not going to get Usyk and we're not going to get AJ versus Tyson Fury, do AJ versus Deontay Wilder. Kind of the bragging rights of who that next guy is. I think Tyson Fury, I think he made a sound point tonight when he's like, listen, I think Deontay Wilder is the second best heavyweight on the planet. I think that's true. I think for a long time people thought it was AJ, and I think that maybe AJ has some more polish with his boxing. I don't think there's any denying that, but Deontay's got more dog to him, man. He just does. He's more entertaining in that way. I think that tonight erased a lot of everything that people were put off by with what was said after the second fight. I think that's, stuff off into the ether. Should he not go on some, crazy conspiracy tour after this? Although he will have some material, I will say. But I think that for sure, Anthony Joshua, I think that's a fun grudge match, and I think it's a good grudge match, and I think it's a good, I don't want to say measuring stick, because there's not really much to measure with both of them, but I think it's a good, I guess maybe pole position is the way to go. I think it's a good jockeying position to see who is the next guy after this Usyk versus Tyson Fury thing is settled. Unless AJ wins. If AJ wins, then maybe Deontay fights Usyk. Maybe Deontay fights Andy Ruiz. I think there are options out there for him. I think for Tyson, I think the only thing is to just wait for the undisputed belts. I really do. I don't see the point in doing anything else after a fight like this. I think Tyson Fury was probably thinking to himself that this was going to be a pretty unentertaining fight and that he was going to wax Deontay Wilder, and so that he would need something else to kind of keep the fire in the belly and to maybe spark something else. I think he got that tonight. I don't think he needs to have that quick turnaround, but we'll see. I mean, he's not usually a guy who just gives lip service to stuff when it comes to his boxing career and what he plans on doing and says he plans on doing. He usually ends up doing. So if he does end up fighting in December, I'm not going to be shocked. I just don't think he needs to do it right now. So all in all, what a classic from these guys. What a night for boxing fans, for sports fans. It was so memorable. I'm gonna remember this night for a long, long time. So thank you to Tyson Fury. Thank you to Deontay Wilder for a hell of a show. Well worth every penny. And hopefully they both do come out of this healthy and we can see them in the ring again. And man, just an unbelievable show from the both of them.